this week I was gonna talk about Caraval, but I just started reading it and I don't really want to talk about that book yet until I finish reading it, because even though I am loving it and my experience so far has been, I don't want to go into it because, you know, by the end I might be like, nothing was worth it, I hate everything. So we're gonna wait for that. But I thought this time instead I could talk about all the books that I have read, because I realized there's so many books in my bookshelf that I haven't read, and I want to go through them and make like a list of see like which ones I want to read and when for this year. Gonna make like a TBR of the books I already own, because I have a long TBR of books I want to own, but I'm like, some books I don't even remember that I had. The other day I was looking through my bookshelf and I'm like, I had that book. So I'm gonna try to organize that and I'll make a separate video on that, but this time I'm gonna first go through all the ones I already have read, so then we can kind of sort out the ones I haven't. So we're gonna go over there. So I don't have a really extensive book collection, so it's not gonna be that difficult for me to go through and see which ones I have to read. I have not read most of them. I would say even half of them are still unread books, which is a little bit... Okay, so let's see. I already talked about these two. These are The Once Upon a Broken Heart and The Ballad of Never After without the sleeves. And I know I am kind of sinning right now, but I do like to keep them without the sleeves just because look at them. Like, look at them. I love the sleeve, they're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but like just keeping them like this makes me feel
happy.
It just makes me happy. There's no reason, there's no other excuse, it just makes me happy. And I do know that it's to protect them, and I have paid the price. I am aware, but I'm still gonna do it. Also, I feel like I've never really talked about this book when I read it. I never even mentioned it on my Instagram or anything, but this is the book that opened my eyes and my heart to fantasy. A Violet Made of Thorns. And I heard there's another one coming out, and I am so excited for it because this is the book that started everything for me. Oh my god, my hair. This is the book. I've always been interested in like fantasy stories, but I've never really, like, this is the one where I started reading fantasy stories, because I was more of a movie person when it came to fantasy and fiction and sci-fi, because I was like, I need to see it to be able to visualize it and whatever.
This changed me.
And I want to reread it actually, because the other one is coming out. I have no idea when. I have to look that up, because it was a couple months ago that I read this one, but I want to reread it before it comes out. It's such a beautiful book. This one also, the cover, the sleeve was also beautiful, but like, look at that. And then this, like, you can see, just seeing this on my bookshelf, come on. Now this one, look at the tabs. I love this one. This one I did keep the sleeve on. It's a beautiful book underneath, but I'm not a big fan of the yellow, even though this is, wow, this is beautiful, but I like the sleeve more. So see, I don't hate sleeves, okay? I'm not a hater. It's just my preference depending on the book. But yeah, this one is very there's a lot of tabs on this one, because this is the first one I started annotating. Well, this is the second one I started annotating, so I was still very excited when it came to annotating, and I don't really do that to all of my books, especially when it comes to the fantasy ones. I feel like annotating to me is just when I feel like it. I don't feel like I have to annotate every book, even if I loved it. I don't feel like this means I loved it or hated it. I don't feel like this is a way to measure how invested I was in the book. It just means there was a lot of moments I felt like tapping, and that's it. And if I don't feel like tapping another book, it's not necessarily because there wasn't any moments I felt like were worth of tapping. It's just some books I'm just like so invested in the reading that I can't even take the break of like taking a marker or everything. But I do want to go back to some of my books, like especially my fantasy books. Those I just read them all at once. I don't even take a break. but I do want to go back and like annotate some of them, just because there's quotes I want to remember and moments that I think are like, I just sometimes want to reread that one page, and that's what I like tabbing, just the pages that I want to go back to just one day when I'm like, I just want to see what it was again. I want to remind myself of this, you know. So yeah, this one is An Arrow to the Moon, and I think I have, yeah, I made a little review and I put it over here. Flamenca. This one, I feel like on my Instagram account, I talked way too much about this one, to the point that I felt like I needed to give people a break, and I just stopped talking about it only because I felt like I talked about it way too much. But I'll never be done talking about Flamenca. This one is the first book I read when I started my new like reading as a hobby lifestyle, and it's the first one I've ever annotated. Can you tell? I feel like I annotated a little way too much. Like, also the length of those tabs. I want to go back to it because I love this book so much. This is a book I would reread like every week because it was just this is the first one I ever annotated, and at this point I was annotated literally just if something was cute, I was just like, "Aw," you know, and tap that. I kinda tried to have somewhat of a system. Like, I would have the blue highlighter for words that I wanted to look up, because this is a classic Spanish, but it's like Spanish from Spain, so it's, you know, there's a lot of words there that I've never heard of before in my life, and I wanted to look them up. Pink was like plot essential parts, like if I ever wanted to come and reread, just exactly go to what's essential to remember what the plot is, then that's the pink. Then I had some orange moments. The orange, if I am not mistaken, I wish I wrote down what they're supposed to be. That's what I should do, but I didn't. The orange ones, I'm pretty sure, are just moments that I felt like were inspiring, like for my art, or that I wanted to maybe think about later when I was writing down something of my own. I thought those were like inspiring quotes. And then yellow, well, not quotes, but more like inspiration, like, oh, this gave me an idea for something. And then yellow were quotes. Here's one right here. It says, quiero que seas noble y generoso. A quien te pida 5 sueldos, dale 10 marcos. A quien te pida 5, dale 10. Así aumentará tu fama. Actually, that's not the cutest quotes to read out. So let me find a better one. Whatever. But it is very annotated. Like, you can also see not just the highlights, but there's like a lot of pen moments, you know? Like, I wrote my own little notes on what was going on, my feelings about it. So I would say this is my most heavily annotated book, in the sense that I took it seriously. And I kind of want to go back to that. I feel like that alone it's like a hobby. Like, aside from reading, just annotating, it brought me so much peace. It made me really think, because a lot of times I'm reading a book and I'm enjoying and I'm like, you know, loving the journey, but when I'm annotating, it's like I'm really meditating on what I'm reading. And I also made a little review. I wrote down a little review on this one too. On the bottom it says, el saber que esta historia inspiró el mal querer de Rosalía fue más que suficiente para saber que la iba a amar. I'm a Rosalía fan, can you tell? That's actually why I started reading it, because I heard that this book inspired her album, and I was like, then it's gonna inspire me now. We have this book. So, how do I feel about this book? I didn't love it. And it was disappointing because I thought I was gonna love it. I didn't think I was gonna like it. I thought I was gonna love it, you know? And I feel like going in with such expectations is kind of, oh my god, is kind of why I fell so hard from that cloud. And the beginning was actually fine. Like, I felt like it was gonna go to a direction that it did not go, and I think that's why I was so disappointed, because I thought the point of having these guys narrate their story was to highlight, and I mean, I guess it is the point. It is to highlight how it wasn't really about them. Like, they didn't really matter. It was more like the controversy, like the story of why they did it, and how, you know, this is an example for everybody else, and how their situation should be applied to yourself, you know, like how people are always moving on to like, oh yeah, this horrible thing happened to a person, but just reflect on it, see how you can learn from it and move on. Like, everybody's just an experience, everybody's a lesson, everybody's a story to tell, but like, these were real people. And I feel like it could have been intentional, but the book did exactly that. It's like, as the story kept going, it was less and less and less about them. I know, I get it, that's the point, but reading it, just, I feel like it didn't translate that emotion, you know? Like, I understood what was going on and why, but it was uninteresting for me to read about this random character that we'll never see again, and like their life story, just because the narrator felt like it was important to introduce like the background of every single person he mentioned, and then be like, oh wait, we're straying from the main plot, we're straying from the story of these girls. It's like, yeah, you're straying from the story, so I'm done. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it was just that I felt bored at the end of it. It's not that it was bad, it wasn't for me. Next, my year of rest and relaxation. So this one I actually was buddy reading with my friend Maciel, and I did like it. Do I have a review here? I did that just for some of my books. I don't know why I just stopped doing it. There's so many things I just stopped doing and I have to go back to doing. If I remember correctly, I think I gave it a 3.5. Yeah, because the story was really good. Like, I did laugh a bunch of times when I was reading this, and something that can make me laugh, I'm gonna love it. So I did like it. It was just like, I feel like there were moments that would have been more relatable to somebody who's experienced similar situations of what she's experienced or emotions that she's feeling. And at least at the time, I feel like, you know what? I should reread it, because I feel like by the time that I read this and now, a lot has happened in here and in my life, and I feel like I would really appreciate it in a different way now if I read it. But at the time, I didn't feel like it was too relatable, and there's a lot of moments in this book that it's like, you get it if you can relate, you know what I mean? So I did enjoy it, and I could see why a lot of people love the book, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, sometimes I was just like, she's just not a great person, and that's it, you know? I mean, it's always entertaining to watch that. I felt like I was watching a reality show where it's like, I don't know if I hate this, but I want to keep watching it. So that's kind of what it was, and I can appreciate that. See, I'm not the kind of person that needs to love everything, and I don't need to feel a deep emotional connection to every book. Sometimes laughing is more than enough. Okay, for the next one, I'm scared. I'm scared to talk about it because a lot of people love this book so much. I actually started reading it because a lot of the YouTubers that I watch really loved it. So the book is Bunny. Okay, I'm gonna start by saying I have not finished it. So it's not that I'm DNFing. I mean, I guess I did, but like, I might come back to it. But at the time, I feel like I was just reading it for the sake of reading it. I feel like I just kept going because I'm like, I need to get to the part that everybody loves so much. Because again, it might have been just the wrong moment, or like I went in with the wrong expectations, but everybody hyped it up so much that my expectations were here, and I felt like as I read every page, they just kept going down and down and down and down. And maybe that's what ruined it for me, because it was a little too random. I'll say that. Like, I love some randomness and I love some crazy moments in a book, especially like a mystery or whatever. Like, I do appreciate that, but I feel like it was a little like out of nowhere. Like, I understand some things are more of a metaphor or like more of a symbolic meaning, but sometimes I was like, what happened and why and wait, what? Like, I need to understand. And maybe it was because I didn't finish it, but the heads, I'm a little confused. So I can't really rate it because I haven't really finished it. I mean, for what I read, it was like, but I understand that sometimes the ending is what really ties up a story, so I don't want to rate it until I finish it. I'm just gonna say that I am not excited to finish it. I might do it just because I feel like I want to. I feel like there has to really be something there because everybody loves it. So I can't be the... Everybody can be wrong, you know what I mean? So I do want to give it a chance. I'm gonna try it. I'm just not hyped. Okay. Now we're gonna go to this section of the bookshelf. This is where I have some of my favorites. Those are, I don't really have it like a category. I don't have it categorized by like the section of the books I love, the ones I hate, or anything like that. Just coincidentally, here I have some of my favorites. You know what? I just realized it's not a coincidence, they're just a series. Bruh. We have the Cruel Prince series. The Cruel Prince is one of the books that I've been saying that I loved it so much, but because I was reading it and just going at it, you know, just enjoying it, I didn't really annotate anything. And I do want to go back to it because there's so many moments that right now, like sometimes I'm even like, there's a quote and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about that quote. And I go back to the book and I'm like, I wish I annotated it, you know? So I might just go back and do that. But these ones, I would rate a 4.5. And the only reason why I'm not giving it a 5 is because there were moments where like there was a lot. I'm not saying they were unnecessary. I'm just saying I struggle a little bit when I'm giving a lot of information, even when it's necessary. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it's because I get like distracted or whatever, but like sometimes when it comes to a lot of information, I get lost. And there were moments where I was reading and I was like, what? 4.5. And I mean that for the whole series. Individually, the books, I would say my favorite one was the second, The King of Nothing, which is this one. This one. This one I would say was my favorite, and I'll rate it the same. I think they're all, well, except for the last one, I would give it a 4. But the first and the second, I would say 4.5. And this one was my favorite because here's where we actually see a little more of the characters' relationships. The first one, it was mostly, well, they all are about the war and the political situation in this world. So they're all similar setting and I love that, love it. But on this one, we get to see a little more about like what the characters are really feeling about each other, the friendships, relationships, and I love the setting being underwater too. Like I said in my last video, I'm lately obsessed with like water, pirate, mermaids, everything. And that's not, when I say lately, I don't mean like this week or the previous. I mean like for the last couple months. I mean like that era, you know? So I really appreciated that setting in this book. And then the third one, The Queen of Nothing. So the reason why I would say this one was a 4, it's because, first of all, I feel like the ends of series are always I'm not gonna say hit or miss because I wouldn't say it was a miss or anything like that, but they're always the trickiest because there's also a lot of emotion, you know, like of course an ending can be just the perfect ending and you can feel like, yeah, that's satisfying, but sometimes you just feel like I wasn't ready for it to end. So when it's the end of something that you really love, you're very critical. You want it to be worth like all the hours of my life I put into reading this series. I want the ending to be, you know. And was it that? See, as a book, I think it was amazing, but there was just some moments in the ending that I was like, this is the end, you know. But overall, the story, it was good, and I like the characters that were introduced here, and I like that we had the introduction of Soren, who is, I'm not even pronouncing that right, but is our main character in the fourth, well, not the fourth book, it's the new book, and so this is the first book on the series that is a sequel to this first series. Hope I said that right. And she's introduced in the last book, and she's the main character. I'm going to show you something. You know how I like to take up the sleeves of the books, right? And I will keep doing it. But I did learn my lesson. From now on, I'm only gonna keep them without their sleeves in the bookcase just to display them. But if I'm ever taking out my book, they're wearing a sleeve, they're wearing a full outfit, because See this beautiful, oh my god, like beautiful book. Look, see, this is why I keep them without the sleeve. Like, the sleeve is beautiful, but look at that. So I got some Dayquil on it. I don't even tell. It's like yellow. It looks like my dog peed on it, but I swear it's just Dayquil. I learned my lesson, but I'm still gonna keep them without the sleeve. This book, I liked it more than I was expecting. Just because, okay, so I had high expectations, of course, because we're talking about the Cruel Prince universe. Of course my expectations are gonna be high. But because I started reading and I realized like, oh, okay, so I thought the main character was gonna be Oak. And then I see that it's not at all what I thought it was gonna be. So I'm like, okay, then we're gonna have to change the expectations. And it's not that it was lower because he was a different character, it's just because he was a new character. And I'm like, I came here like expecting it to be like a continuation of characters we know. So it's just the fact that she was new that I was like, let's see. But I loved it so much. I feel like I like it even more, the fact that it was her instead of Oak as a main character. And her, I love her. I feel so bad for her. I want to hug her. I want to tell her it's gonna be okay. And I love that she's like, just like Jude, they're both strong female characters that want to fight everybody they see. But Jude was more into like as a human going into this world of monsters. Meanwhile, Surin was the monster in the world of humans. So I feel like that was a really cool switch for the characters while still keeping the trope of the strong female man character. So, loved it. I would say 4.5. No. Oh, actually, let me talk about one book before the one I was going to talk about. That Face. So, I just read it. I know you know. The Secret History. I gave it a 4 because the book was so good, but I felt like at the end I got a little lost, like the last 100 pages. I made a video already talking about that, so I'm not really gonna go deep into it, but overall the mystery and the situation going on and the characters and the gossip in between them, that's the whole thing. Like while I was reading, I feel like I was like talking to a friend and I was like hearing some gossip. I was like, let's go to Henry's house. I want to know what's going on. Go ask him, what did you hear about Bunny? And you know, it was kind of like that. But also there was a lot of moments where I was like, huh? When they were talking about the Greek and everything. It did pique my interest though. So it did make me want to like learn a little more about it. But I was confused a little bit while reading it. Now the book I was going to talk about. Lolita. I haven't finished it. I'm actually gonna buddy read it with my friend this month. Okay, so we read my bookmark fell off. I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm at the book. So I got to like almost the half of it last year, like in October. So it's been a while. I'm gonna have to figure out where I left off. But we decided that we're gonna finish it together because we did start it together. We paused it at the same time, so we're gonna obviously buddy read to the end. But the reason why I paused it is because there's a lot of insane moments in this book, and I understand why it's important and I understand why it was written. So I'm not the kind of people that are like, oh, you're weird if you like to read it. But I did need breaks in between because it was like, it's a little heavy. I mean, change that. It was very heavy. It is very heavy. So I'm gonna go at it with my friend and finish it, but I will take breaks in between probably this other half as well. Not necessarily because I'm like, I feel triggered or anything, but it's just like, sometimes you just need to read something positive in between so much craziness, you know? Sometimes I need a break to just be like, let me read about like my fairies and my like love stories and like my man with power. And then I can go back to the insanity that is Lolita. But it is an important story to read, and I am enjoying. I feel like I shouldn't even say that. So I like the book, and I'm enjoying how the story is being told. And I can appreciate all the moments where you're supposed to be like, I got what you were trying to say there. But it is crazy to read a story from the perspective of this kind of main character. So I'm reading it, but I'm going really slow. I'm taking my time with this one. Now we're going to descend. We're sitting down. I honestly just need to reorganize my bookshelf. I don't really have a specific order to it. Oh my god, we have a guest. It's not that I like them any less or anything, but coincidentally, I do have some of the books I like the least in here too. So let's start with those. Howl's Moving Castle. I'm gonna be really quick with this one. I didn't like it. It's not what I expected. It's not like the movie, of course, I know that. But the book was, I thought it was gonna be, because I know we see more about her and who she is as a person, but who she is as a person wasn't really that interesting to me. I said it. It was just one word, boring. There wasn't really anything I hated or anything I felt strongly about. I was just very underwhelmed. And I was very excited about it, so again, probably that also didn't help. But by the end of it, I was just happy that it was over. So that was disappointing. Here, I'm nervous. Just like Bunny, I read this one because everybody loved it. And I was like, I read Flamenca first, and this is the second book I read in like this whole like new life journey, and I picked this as the second one because I was so excited about it after seeing everybody. I'm like, all of BookTube is telling me to read this, so I must. I didn't like it. I wanted to like it, and I really tried to get into the mindset of like, why do people like it? Like, I'm trying to like understand, and I'm reading with that mentality. But eventually I realized that's not the point. Like, if I have to force myself to like something just because I feel like everybody else liked it, so I must be the one not understanding, then it's like, that's not the point of reading. Some people just don't like stuff, and I feel like I just didn't like it. I understand the point is that they are normal people, so it's about normal people doing normal people things. But again, I thought it was boring. And it was so toxic. Like, everybody's loving their relationship, but like, I just hated their relationship so much. Now, I'm not saying that people are wrong for liking it. I'm just saying I personally didn't understand. And just seeing the way that he treated her, most of the moments I was just very underwhelmed. Like, again, it's normal people, but it was so normal. This is why I read fantasy. I was a little ruthless though with my review. This one I did write a little review in the front, but I gave it 1 star, and I said, first of all, I'm a hater. Second of all, I couldn't even finish this book. Oh, that's right. I mean, I almost did though. I'm sorry, but if after reading 190 pages out of 287, I'm still bored, I don't care if it gets good later. Like, normal people are boring, and so is this book. Bye. This is literally what I wrote. Man, I was going through it. I think it's because I was like, I'm gonna start my reading journey, and then I read it and I didn't like it, and I was so frustrated. This one is Letters to a Young Poet, and I have so many feelings when it comes to this book. All positive. Let me start with that. Tell me, do you think I enjoyed it? Do you think I liked it? What do you think? What do you think? Do you think I had anything to say about this book? What do you think now? Oh wait, you're not convinced. What about now? I feel like every single page, I treated this book like a journal. 10 out of 5. This book is probably one of the best things I've ever read in my whole life, because it's exactly what I needed. I feel like, even though obviously it's about a poet, letters to a poet, but this applies to every single person that even enjoys art. Even if you don't create art, just enjoying art, I feel like you should read this book many times. It's for us, the intellectuals. I don't even want to talk about what's in the inside. I just need to read it and cry, because you will. This book is very short. This specific edition, obviously it's different depending on the size of the pages, but this edition has only 38 pages. Only 38. This is basically a brochure. Go get it. You can read it. You know what? I'm gonna reread it. I'm gonna leave it outside because I am gonna reread it. I know that you saw it, and I know that you want me to talk about it. Babel. Babel. I don't care. I don't know. I actually don't know how to pronounce it. This book. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. First, the tabs. Whoa! There were so many things about this book that I loved. So many different aspects of it. Also, beautiful. So we kept it on. Oh, beautiful. This book had so many different aspects of why, to me, it is a 5 out of 5. First of all, the plot. There was not a single boring moment in this book. There was not a single moment where I was like, I can skip this page. This book just kept me so interested. Part of why I took over a month to finish it, because it's not short, but it's not really like that long. It's just 542 pages. It's, depends on how much you read. It could be a long book, but it wasn't because of that. It was just because every single page I felt like I had to stop and write something and meditate on it and like look up something. It was like I was studying this book more than just reading it. So it took me a really long time, but I really enjoyed it. So the main characters are all amazing. They're all interesting. There's one in particular. What the writer was trying to do with that character, she did perfectly. But the main character, I love that he was in this position where he was a foreigner and he was struggling because of that. But even then, he could acknowledge that he had more privilege than other of his friends that were also foreigners, and how everybody's experience is different. We all suffer, we all have bad moments, we all experience discrimination, but everybody experiences in a different way, and it does matter, it does matter how it affects you for being a woman, or for being a person of color, or for being an immigrant, or for being just a foreigner. Like, everything is different, and there are worse than others, and that does not invalidate one. It's so important to acknowledge all of this, and I feel like it was done so perfectly. And I feel like I can relate on some of the characters as well because of that same thing. Like, the feeling of being a foreigner and being an immigrant and being Hispanic, but also being white. There's like, so many things in this book that it makes you want to like sit down and really think about it and think of yourself and put yourself in the position of there's always going to be a character where you can either relate to or learn from. And I think that's the important thing. I feel like this book, everybody should read it. Doesn't matter who you are, everybody should read it. And I promise you, you're going to take something out of it. Besides that, they are in Babel, the school, and they learn about languages mostly. And this really awoken my desire to learn Latin and Greek, because I enjoy learning languages. Right now, I am studying Korean. I've been studying Korean for 4 years now, and I just love learning languages in general. But I've been interested in learning a lot more. Like, I have a list of languages, and I'm like, okay, once I feel comfortable with Korean, I'm gonna move to the next language. And after reading this, I'm like, okay, the next one is Latin. So 5 out of 5. And then what's left is Caraval, who I just started reading, but I am not gonna talk about it yet because I literally just started. So on my next video, I am going to talk about probably the ones that I have not read, because I was gonna do this video, but you know what? Things change. This time I talked about the books I did read on my bookshelf, and next time we're gonna go to the ones I haven't read and kind of organize all that.